February the 15th, 2022, and I am here in Atlanta, Georgia on a beautiful day. Going to be around 60 degrees for the high, sunny, mostly sunny, and no humidity, which is always a great thing. Getting ready to head to Florida on Friday for a conference we're doing on Saturday night, and I know that it can tend to be a lot more humid in Florida, especially in the summer months, definitely. So hopefully you had a enjoyable Valentine's Day. I had a great Valentine's Day myself. Personally, had a great dinner with my wife and her son at Papa Do's. If you've never eaten at a Papa Do's, they're very good. They tend to cater to fish and or Cajun style type food. So anyway, very tasty, and watched a movie last night and just had a great relaxing Valentine's Day, and also enjoyed some chocolate, which I tend to like. So wanted to let everyone know that tomorrow night, you don't want to miss tomorrow night, there's a special Facebook Live. It's only going to be on Facebook Live. We'll later convert it to YouTube, but it's going to be with my good friends from Chicago, Brian and Gina Matichek. They're going to be sharing their testimony about how inner healing and deliverance help change everything in their lives, in their marriage, and how they're now helping people get healed and delivered. So you don't want to miss it tomorrow night. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it's only exclusively to my Facebook, so you can watch it there. And of course, we'll convert it probably the following day to YouTube, so the YouTubers can watch it as well. But I always love testimonies from people, because that's why we do this ministry, is to help people get healed from their past soul wounds, get delivered from demons, and then they get to enjoy their marriage, get to enjoy Valentine's Day, where there's no striving, no fighting, no arguing, no lying, no cheating, no strife. You know, the servant of the Lord, a servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle with all, in order, you know, that hopefully the people that are in error can see the error of their ways. 2 Timothy 2:23-24 is what that talks about, and it's true. The enemy likes to cause strife, especially in marriage. So that's the main reason why Restored to Freedom exists, is because we're willing to talk about the truth, the subjects that the church tends to shy away from, and the messy situations in marriages and individual lives that deal with soul wounds and demons. So anyways, Breakthrough Tour this coming Saturday. It'll be in Orlando, Florida, at the Courtyard by Marriott in Lake Mary, which is just north of Orlando. So come out for that. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern. Then March the 5th, got a lot of people signed up on Eventbrite for this one in Nashville, Tennessee, and that's at the Courtyard. No, it's the Residence Inn at Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee. It's up on the northeast side, so don't miss that for you Nashville people in Tennessee and surrounding states. Again, that is March the 5th at 7 p.m. Central. Nashville's on Central Time. And then April the 2nd will be in Dallas at the Marriott Dallas Los Colinos in Irving, Texas. April the 8th in Waco, Texas at the Axe Church. It's hosted by Walking in Freedom. April the 8th, Friday night at 7 p.m. And then April the 9th, Saturday at 6 p.m. doing a deliverance training, doing a deliverance, corporate deliverance on April the 8th. And then April 30th and May 1st in Merkel, Texas at the Fountain Gate Church. Alrighty, topic of the day. I've never specifically addressed this before, but again, there's tons of different facets that you can address and talk about the spirit of Jezebel. You know, a lot of times people want to talk about spirit of Jezebel in the context of how people that struggle with that come into the church and then try to attack either the pastor or, you know, other ministry people with their lies, with their deception and twisting the truth, which by far and away every church needs to be addressing this. But I like to address the spirit of Jezebel how it affects marriages and how it causes divorce. Because, in my opinion, about 85% of marriages are struggling mightily because typically one person struggles more with the Jezebel spirit, and they marry a person that struggles more with Ahab. So they come together, and then you get Jezebel because you've been hurt, wounded by your father, by your mother, through sexual violations, through other people, step parents, you name it. And it causes you to be mean, causes you to be controlling, causes you to want your way. Oftentimes there's a sexual side that's not pure. And then they come together and they marry a person that has Ahab. Ahab wants to get along, typically wants to be nice and tolerate the spirit of Jezebel in their spouse. And then eventually they get tired of tolerating it. They get tired of being controlled, emotionally abused, and they finally stand up for themselves and they say enough. And sometimes they separate, they part from it. And that's when Jezebel really starts to rear the head, because at that point they start to feel rejected. And they can't stand to be rejected. They want to control. And ultimately, truth be told, they would love to cause their mate to have a slow death. And I've seen it occur at a church in Indianapolis that I went to, where a man had the spirit of Jezebel, and he acted all sweet and nice, but he would say mean things to his wife and children. Children left as soon as they could when they when they graduated. But ultimately, his wife died of a brain tumor at the age of like 42, and then he got remarried, and then she started getting sick within like a year, because you cannot be around a person that has the spirit of Jezebel without having some effects from it, because of the words that are spoken. Negative words, critical words. It can be physical abuse and sexual abuse, but guarantee you it's going to be emotional abuse. And again, there's subtle versions of Jezebel that can act so sweet and so nice, but yet will never give in and allow you to have freedom to choose. And so ultimately, they'll act sweet and nice in front of the church, so it's very hard to discern, because they'll act all sweet and nice to everybody else except for you, except their target. Or if you try and get in their way, if you're in the church and then they want to be in a specific position of leadership. There's people that are, pastors that have this, pastors' wives that have this, worship leaders that have this, worship leaders' wives, or whatever, wives and or husbands, and those in leadership. So Jezebel, what I've seen and experienced myself is it's extremely hard to get a person healed and delivered from it. And the main reasons why, and I explained this last week, is because there's a lot of pride, spirit of Leviathan, Job 41, verse 34, king over all the children of pride. So when a person gets hurt and they get wounded when they're growing up, they'll have the spirit of Leviathan that will come in, speak to them, that will give them pride and tell them that all of their decisions are the best. You cannot trust anybody else. And if they're, say, a girl that's got hurt by her dad, then the demonic spirits will tell them they cannot trust men. They'll end up getting married to a man, and the demons will try to get them to pay back their husband for the hurt and pain that they went through with their dad. And the same thing can happen with a man. If he gets hurt, say, by his mom, gets overly controlled, then or sexually touched by a woman, oftentimes then that will come in and cause him to be mad at his wife and try and take out that pain on her. So but the challenge with a person getting delivered from spirit of Jezebel is being honest with their own negative behavior, because it's extremely hard for them to own their own stuff. Let me see if I can get this up a little higher. There we go. Yeah, so that's where the challenge is. And the demons are so used to, the person's so used to hearing the demons that they believe everything that they hear and do is right. They're convinced, because the demonic spirits will convince them that their spouse is bad. They're bad, they're bad, they're bad. And it will cause them to provoke, oftentimes, their spouse to get angry. And then they'll rise up. Hello to Mindy on YouTube. So what do you do when you're married to a person, say that you have the spirit of Ahab, so you're used to kind of trying to look the other way, trying to get along, and the person that's Jezebel is trying to control you, put you down, and make you do what they want, and not giving you freedom, and accusing you of things, being critical, and you finally Say, enough of this. I can't take this anymore. You're killing me. Slowly, you're killing me. And the Jezebel doesn't want to admit it, doesn't want to own it. And I guarantee you, they will come up with a million ways to look like the victim. So here's what happens, and this is the truth. This is the deeper truth that most in the church don't talk about, but I'm talking about it because I went through it and I know it. And we've seen tremendous victories in people that have gotten delivered from this. That's why we do it, and saved their marriages. That's why we're talking on tomorrow night, Wednesday night, with Brian and Gina Matichek. So they're going to share their testimony and how the Lord did it. And again, I just saw today, where Michael Stone and his wife, Lori, down in Florida, they saved their marriage going through inner healing and deliverance. So we've got testimonies, plenty of them around the world. But again, I can also tell you that there's testimonies where people, and it's always the person that struggles more with Jezebel, will refuse to look in the mirror at themselves. And they will act like they're a victim. And this is how it works. And this is the truth. So again, you have one person that's got the Jezebel spirit, the other person has Ahab. The person that has Jezebel spirit, when the Ahab oftentimes will separate and part because they cannot take the control anymore, what will happen is the Ahab will have a couple of people that they'll talk to and say, listen, I can't deal with this anymore. This is really over the top, and I had to get out. I love my spouse, but I have to separate, I have to part. And then the people that will talk to the person that has Jezebel, the Jezebel will try to act like they're pure as the wind-driven snow, and that they're innocent of all charges, and they'll come up with a false narrative to implicate the person that they've been controlling and emotionally abusing. That's really what it is. And they'll act like they're a victim. They'll try to sell it as poor, pitiful me. I'm a victim of this, and please feel sorry for me. And they'll twist things, and they'll come up with stories that are not true of their Ahab victim. And they'll tell as many people as they possibly can. Tell their parents, tell their people at church, tell their friends, and try to get the sympathy from them. And if they can get the sympathy to agree with them, what that does is it solidifies the strength of the Jezebel spirit upon them. And I can tell you that it's extremely hard for them to get delivered, because what will happen is these people, as many as they can, and that's what Jezebel does, is goes to as many people as possible. And they oftentimes will tell the Ahab, don't go to anybody, don't tell anybody, let's keep this between you and I. Well, they go to as many people as possible, and as many people as will agree with them and say, oh, poor, pitiful you, I'm so sorry for you, oh my gosh. What that will do is that will allow them in public opinion to be able to say, you know what, I've tried everything to save this marriage, and it just won't work. And the people will give them sympathy, and that gives the strength of the demonic spirits of Jezebel to stay on them. And are they going to heaven? At that point, no. God knows their heart, and their heart, out of their heart, has come a lot of evil things, a lot of evil things they've said and done. And so as many people as they can go to, what that will do is solidify the demons to stay on them. Because if they were to say the truth of what they've done, they'd have to admit that they lied. And that's extremely hard to do, is to humble yourself in order to save your marriage and say, listen, I've lied about everything to you guys. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's because of me. I have done all the provoking. I have done all these evil things, and the things you don't even know about because I haven't told you. All I've told you is the things that my spouse has done, and of course they enhance those things, and oftentimes they're the cause of it because they provoke it, and they provoke it, and they provoke it till the person finally says, enough, I can't take this anymore, and then they say things or do things that they're not proud of. But the Ahabs will, in 9 times out of 10, be honest and say, yeah, I did this, I did that, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. Where Jezebel will deny it. That's what Jezebel spirit will do. Just simply deny the truth, lie, and that becomes your false narrative, that if you can get as many people as possible to believe it, then guess what? They'll agree with you. Yep, you need to get a divorce from them. When in reality, the Ahab person's tried everything, and they're waiting for the Jezebel to humble themselves, to be honest. So, is that true? Yes, it is the truth. And the truth is really ultimately what sets a person free. But it's hard. Isn't there a song, truth is harder than a lie? I'm pretty sure. It's true because then you have to admit the damage that you've done. And again, the Ahabs will admit to the things they've done. They can do that. But people of Jezebel, it's so hard to admit the truth. Why? Because they've been hurt and wounded when they're growing up. And I'll say this, oftentimes, if they had a mom or a dad that had Jezebel, then if they did make a mistake, then guess what would happen? Is they would be yelled at oftentimes from their dad or mom. So therefore, it was easier to try to lie and tell the parent what they wanted to hear to avoid being yelled at or spanked in a very harsh way or mean way or beat up, whatever the punishment might have been. And that's the truth. So, a person that has Jezebel, when they've lied and spread these rumors and twisted truths and so forth and get the people, public opinion to support them, that will allow the demons to win out to cause the divorce to then happen. And the person that has Ahab doesn't want the divorce, but they know that they cannot go back to the Jezebel. They cannot tolerate that spirit. Because if they do, their life is going to end, especially after they've parted and separated. Because normally if they go back to the Jezebel, Jezebel's like, aha, now I've got you. Now I'm going to really put the screws to you. And then at that point, the person that Ahab normally is like, I'm out of here. You know, and that's why some of the Jezebels will go to the extreme and, try to beat them up physically or intimidate them. They normally know that they can't go that far, so they end up lying to as many people as possible, trying to get other people to hate on them and join in on the hate. So this is what's going on throughout the world. And we cannot make our spouse an idol before God. So if you are a person that struggles with Ahab and you've been tolerating Jezebel for a long time, and they're not willing to admit the truth and humble themselves, then you have no recourse other than to separate part, and the Lord will confirm when it's time, if it's time to divorce. And it's a sadness for the person that has Ahab, because oftentimes they've tried everything to help them see the light, but it's really hard because the Jezebel wants to come up with their false narrative to lie about the things they've done. And if a counselor and or pastor believes the lies of Jezebel, then that will help to justify, well, I guess you're going to need a divorce. When the Ahab's like, I want to save this, but I cannot tolerate this. So that's what we're dealing with, and there's a percentage of people that do end up getting divorced because Jezebel it just refuses to get delivered and admit the truth and be honest and humble themselves from the pride. So it'd be nice, if most pastors and pastors' wives would get healed and delivered themselves so that they can preach this and speak this and help their congregation get delivered and then be on their way to heaven and have the fruit of the Spirit. It's the Lord's confirmed to me over and over again, people that have struggles with the spirit of Jezebel, if they don't get healed and delivered from that, they're not on their way to heaven. Galatians 5:16-26 pretty much explains it, because their behavior is of the flesh. There's a lot of sexual stuff they're doing that is not godly, it's not pure. Masturbation, looking at pornography, having... and I'll say this again, you could have a person that is struggling, being abused by a person that has Jezebel, that ends up going outside the marriage, with an emotional affair or sexual relationship. And it's only because the Jezebel is being so mean and controlling and hurtful to them. Doesn't obviously excuse what they do. They oftentimes feel very remorseful for what they've done. But that explains, if you're in a relationship with someone and you want to be loved, and all they do is abuse you emotionally, and that's what Jezebel does, then that kills the marriage. Talking about Valentine's Day, a lot of people are desiring to have a healthy sexual relationship. But if you're in a relationship with someone who has the spirit of Jezebel, you're not going to have intimacy. All you're going to do is be controlled and put down and belittled and all month long. And if you think that's going to be conducive to having a wife or a husband who has Ahab to say, oh, great, let's have sex. No, it doesn't work that way. That's why it's so critical to be healed and delivered. Then you have true intimacy. Then it's a wonderful thing. It's the way God created it to be. But if you're saying negative words over and over again, and you expect the person to say, oh, gee, let's have sex, no, it doesn't work that way. And oh my gosh, I mean, there's so many crazy things I've heard from the pulpit that other people have told me, and some things I've seen myself at people that don't get this, and don't understand this. And if you counsel a person that has these demonic spirits, and you forget that the person has demonic spirits, you want to say, just be more loving, just more respectful. Here, read a book. Have more love, have more respect. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. They're hearing all these demons up here all the time. Again, negative thoughts from demons will cause you to behave in ways that are not godly. And that's the truth. The truth is what sets people free. So, again, the National Science Foundation did a study in 2005 that found the average person could have up to 12,000 or more thoughts a day, of which 80% are negative. 95% the same thoughts as the day before. Those are demons. And that's based upon you getting hurt and wounded when you were younger and not being able to forgive. So yes, Christians are hearing demons all the time. And just because you can pray in tongues and prophesy doesn't mean that your soul wounds are healed and you're delivered. So unfortunately, this is what needs to be done, is forgiving people who have hurt you, humbling yourself from your pride, being honest. And if you're in a marriage, hopefully getting delivered. You get delivered, you're not going to strive, you're not going to argue, you're going to be honest. You don't have anything to cover up because you're not behaving in bad ways. You're not triggering on your spouse anymore. You don't have to cover it up. You don't have to sell the lie to as many people that will listen to you. So again, understand is Jezebel is definitely willing to sacrifice their marriage, but they don't want to take the responsibility. So they'll blame the other person. That's why I'm always telling people, look in the mirror at yourself. Look in the mirror at yourself. Ask the Lord to show you. And if you're not willing to do that, and all you want to do is to blame your spouse, you're not going to get delivered. And you'll end up in divorce, and you'll end up getting oftentimes remarried and divorced again, remarried, divorced again. And I remember, it was very interesting, because I won't say who it was, but there was a woman who had been married 4 times and was wanting her then husband to listen to a Joyce Meyer video or audio. And so they were listening to it in the car, and Joyce Meyer was talking about a woman that came up to her at one of her conferences and said, you know what, if I just had a man like your husband, Dave, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have had to gone through, I think she'd gone through 3 divorces. And Joyce, in the eloquence of her bluntness, said, you've been divorced 3 times? Well, who's the common denominator in all these marriages? You are. And she was straight and to the point. Well, then that woman that was listening, wanting her husband to listen to it, turned it off immediately. Oh, no, we don't want to listen to that. Because it was the truth. The responsibility of those divorces for that woman was her. She was hurt by her father, by her mother, sexual violations. She would trigger all the time on her husbands, causing them to say, I am tired of being yelled at, tired of being screamed at, tired of all this. And she caused all of her divorces. So again, typically, people that have Jezebel, it's hard for them to admit the truth and look in the mirror at themselves. It's much easier to blame, come up with a false narrative and lie, get people to believe those lies, and have the public opinion to support them in poor, pitiful you. And all those people are doing is believing lies. And so, do people want to save their marriages? Well, I do believe truly the people that struggle with Ahab's spirit do. They want that more than anything. But the people that have Jezebel do not. In fact, I'll say this, Holy Spirit reminded me. So in this real life situation, there's a husband and wife where the husband was being mean, controlling, abusive to his wife. And in the midst of, 4 or 5 or 6 other people, this guy was working on this house, doing some projects for them, and Spirit of the Lord came upon him and spoke to him and said that the guy who was abusing his wife was abusing his wife and wasn't treating her well, and confronted the guy. And the guy was like listening to everything for like 15 minutes. Can you imagine having someone confronting a person that's very abusive to a spouse in front of other people? And after that dialogue of 15 minutes, the wife that was being abused, they drove home, and then she waited, I don't know, 15 minutes and said, "So, what do you think about what that person said to you?" And then her husband said, "What? What are you talking about? I don't know. I don't know. What are you talking about?" And it was as if he didn't even hear it. Was he being honest? Probably not. But those demons on a person, you can confront the person with the truth as blunt as what that happened, and the person will still deny it because the truth hurts. And it's like, how many of us who have been under abusive situations would have loved to have someone confront? You wait for that point. Oh my gosh, if somebody could actually confront. But then if that person denies it, so you can imagine if you're hearing from a person that has Jezebel, how they're complaining about their spouse. If they've got the spirit of Jezebel, I'll guarantee you they're lying. And they're lying and lying and selling so many lies to get sympathy from them. And I know of a pastor in Ohio. His wife, I came to speak at their church, and she Jezebeled him. I came to the church. I did what I was supposed to do, speak the truth. And then afterwards, I think it was the next day, he asked his wife, "So, what'd you think of what Nelson said?" And she goes, "You're a Jezebel." And he's like, "What? No." He's like, "You're the one." And she could not admit it. And ultimately, it took him another couple years before she kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then they ended up divorcing, So no one can override a person's free will. The Lord will speak the truth and give us the right to choose. And if we choose to keep the lie, live in the lie, we're going to die, and we're not going to heaven. And the Lord may give us multiple chances to hear the truth. You may have a person come straight up to you in front of other people and confront and say, "The Lord's showing me you're lying and you're not being honest and you're abusing." And then the person still denies it. "No, I don't know what you said. No, I don't remember. I don't remember a thing." And you're like, "What? How could you not remember? It was right in front of you, in front of other people. We all heard it." And I believe the enemy's getting even more bold and more brazen to come up with these lies. You see it in politics all the time. When a person does, and again, Jezebel will oftentimes accuse their victim of what they do. You see that with what's going on with the latest report, the Durham report, and it's exposing the truth. And again, the person can't just deny it. It's what they seem to do. "Nope, I didn't do it. Nope," or blame the other person. And at that point, it's like you give them time to repent. Just like God says, I gave Jezebel time to repent in Revelation 2:18-23, but she refused. She refused to repent for her sexual immorality and other junk. And so he says, "I will put her on a sickbed," or him on a sickbed, "and kill her children and or his children." So again, there's like a righteous anger that rises up within me, because it's like you have the option. You can choose to be honest, or you can choose to lie. And if you want to lie, you will keep the demons and you will lose your marriage. And again, those who have Ahab have bent over backwards to give them chance after chance after chance. And when they refuse, there's no choice. You cannot tolerate Jezebel. You cannot bow down to that spirit. It's evil and it's wicked. So it is hard, when you have been, I'll say this with the Ahab spirit, oftentimes they will protect and protect and protect all the evil behavior that's going on by Jezebel. They will lie for them. I saw this. I had people come up, "You're so lucky to be married to such and such," and I was just thinking, "Oh yeah," smile, like, "Yeah, I'm so lucky." Thinking in my mind, you should be so lucky. Here, you marry them. You see what they're like, because they're horrible. And so the Ahabs will cover up, cover up, cover up, cover up, cover up, and lie for them with hopes that they'll change and get delivered. But again, they go to the same church that never talks about inner healing and deliverance and Jezebel. They're not going to get healed and delivered. And again, I always tell people, I cannot get anyone delivered if they don't want to. So if I'm doing a session with a couple or doing a session with the person and they're struggling with the Jezebel spirit and they want to lie and act like they're innocent of everything and not own anything, I'm like, I can't help them. I can't help them get delivered. They can live in their lies, but I can say this, they will never have peace in their lives, and they'll never have joy in their marriage. They'll never have a good marriage, because the only way you'll do it is by being honest and getting delivered from that. But I cannot make anyone get delivered. Jesus couldn't make the Pharisees and scribes get delivered. We speak the truth, and then the person has to say, you know what, I'm going to humble myself, and I'm going to repent for what I've done. And I'm going to own the lies that I've told and take away the legal rights the demons have. Forgive those who've hurt me. Command the demons to go. You know, I've had so many people that said, my gosh, I wish this message I could have watched, 20 years ago or before I got married. And I'm like, yeah, me too. but it's like nobody in the church was talking about that. I mean, there's a few that talked about the Jezebel spirit, but it really takes a person living it, experiencing it, and understanding it, and then you know it. I know a lot of people that watch my stuff, they get it, they understand, they've gone through it. A percentage of them had Jezebel, a percentage of them had Ahab and Leviathan, and oftentimes we have all three. I had all three. I understood it. I went through some of the same thing. I need to get rid of pride and some control and manipulation and jealousy, and so I understand Jezebel. I also understand Ahab. My dad was a typical Ahab. My mom was more Jezebel. She wasn't extreme Jezebel, but she was definitely hurt by her mother, and her mother was controlling, and she wanted to have a close relationship with her dad, and she couldn't because she would listen in on the conversation on the phone. I mean, she controlled my mom's dad, her husband, a lot, and it was sad, very sad. Anyway, now that we know the truth, we can help people get set free. And when you get delivered from these demons, then you will behave more Christ-like. You'll have the fruit of the Spirit. That's how you know. People always ask me, how do you know when you've been healed and delivered? I'm like, well, you're going to have the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace. You cannot fake peace. People that have not been delivered will not be peaceful people. They will always have drama and strive, argue. So love, joy, peace, patience. They'll be patient. You'll be patient, long-suffering. People that have Ahabs have oftentimes long suffered. And when they finally stand up and say, enough is enough, then Jezebel. So, and again, I'll say this, people can have Jezebel spirit and still pray in tongues. I've seen it. They can pray in tongues, they can prophesy. I have had people that were on the Elijah list that were prophets that had Jezebel, that needed deliverance in order to treat their spouses lovingly. And so it is true. You can still do Matthew 7:21-23, Lord, Lord, look at all I've done for you. I've cast out demons, prophesied, done many wonders. And the Lord says, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness, which is sin. So you can prophesy and still have demons and not get into heaven. How ironic is that? That was a mind trip for me. And when I was married to someone that had Jezebel and they could prophesy and pray in tongues, I'm like, how can that be? How can you treat me so horribly behind closed doors? But I was able to see it, and I needed to see it so I could share it because it's the truth. Help others get set free and delivered. So, alrighty, we're going to let you go. I got some sessions to do with peeps today. So, alrighty, I will see you guys later.